Hey everybody, my name is Andrea and I'm a licensed mental health therapist in the state of Michigan, and welcome to the Connection Diaries. I'm really excited for this series because all month long I am going to be interviewing people in my life that I like to call the loves of my life, people who are part of my community, people who mean the most to me, just to talk about connection and what it looks like to be in healthy relationships and what it looks like to create new relationships when maybe healthy relationships hasn't been a part of your narrative. So these conversations are going to be super casual. I'm at my friend's house, my bestie, my girl. I'm so excited. So I'm going to have her just say a little bit about herself. And the purpose of this video is to talk about the idea of friendship. And, you know, a lot of times you hear me talk a lot about on this channel the idea of the loneliness epidemic. 1 in 2 people experience loneliness on a regular basis. And what I got from that is we need each other. We need more connection. We need more intimacy. And I know a lot of people who may have people in their lives, but they don't feel connected to them. And so I really want this conversation to be about how Jackie and I stay connected with each other throughout the years, and how we are even wanting to deepen that connection as we move forward, and just kind of go from there. So, you ready?
Yes. I'm super excited.
All right. So I just want you to introduce yourself in whatever way feels natural for you. Tell the people who you are.
I'm Jacqueline. I am honored to be this girl's best friend. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker, so I do mental health as well, mental health therapy, and I love what I do. I love human connection as well, and I think we definitely need more of it because it is sometimes I think it's also like the importance of like intimate connections, not just kind of like coexisting alongside one another, but like the actual connection too.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like sometimes community spaces could be just a bunch of bodies in the same room. And sometimes that's helpful to know that, okay, I'm not physically alone, but sometimes you can be in a room and still experience that loneliness because you don't feel seen in that room. And for me, I felt very much like seen in the context of our friendship. And so that's why I picked you to kick this series off. Okay. We've known each other for about 10 years. We met in college and undergrad, and have navigated our friendship as we went on to do our own separate things in terms of grad school, careers, came back, worked with each other at one period of time. There's a time when we lived close to each other. There's been time now where we live freaking far from each other.
It's a sad time. But also it's been one of the easiest connections, at least for me, like just the empathy and just like the great qualities that you have has been like one of the easiest friendships to maintain for me, even with distance. So just
and that's intentional. So we want to talk about like what are some ingredients to kind of cultivate and nourish friendship over time. So tune in. We're gonna see what comes up, and if you have questions, you can put it in the comment section, or you can send me an email. And as always, at the end of the video, I'm gonna leave some journaling prompts for you to begin to think about how do I deepen intimacy in my friendships and my connection, and how do I be open to platonic intimacy in my life, especially as we all are navigating just a really hard season right now, for so many different reasons. So let's jump in. I have my questions right here. So I already talked about a little bit of how we met. So one thing I want us to talk about is just like our favorite part of being friends, and we might have different ways to look at it. So what's your favorite part?
Well, one, I just feel like life is so much more fun with you in it. Like it's also just so much more rewarding. Like I think like the conversations that we have, like I feel like we're on a similar wavelength. I think I was literally just saying that earlier today, where we'll just be like, oh, we're just in tune with each other. I also think just your insight and like how you see the world is like a very beautiful thing, and like it a lot of times can like ground me when I'm feeling kind of like disconnected or like feeling like in my own trauma response or whatever. Like I feel like you're just like a safe, solid ground for me to be on, and I really like appreciate that and your authenticity too.
Yeah.
She says, receiving the compliments. I'm about to be the next one. Is like, oh, okay.
Just like soak it in, allow it to happen. No, I'm really grateful, and So I think my favorite part about our friendship is that I can be like my complete and whole self. So that is my silly, goofy self, and that's also my like sad, emotional, sensitive self. that's myself that's like, hey, let's go out and let's do something. That's myself that's like, let's sit on the couch and like let's do nothing.
Take
That
out.
makes sense.
Let's eat some good food and chill, watch some funny movies.
Yeah, like so there's depth, there's nuance,
Yeah.
there's flexibility, there's no like rigidness as it relates to like how I'm expected to show up.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me. I think we have similar values in terms of like we could challenge each other in terms of when we have difference, but for the most part, I feel like we have similar values. That's something that I think holds us together. And not just like similar values like, oh, like politics or like things of that nature, more so like we view friendship, I think, the same. And I think that like we both are honest about the level of intimacy that we crave, and maybe we have the same love language, like at least I think so, in terms of like quality time and like being okay with just like when we, at least when we live closer, like being able to kind of hang out and just, it don't have to be nothing spectacular, but then sometimes it is like, even when we're just, I remember one memory just coming to your apartment and like you had like a wine night for us, and it's just like that's so cute. Like it's just like this idea of like dating your friends is a concept that's been floating around, and you know that it's not like this is a like a lesser relationship or a less priority relationship or a relationship I'm just in to like pass the time. It's like, no, this
or
isn't
less fulfilling, or
yeah. So those are, I could talk all day, but those are probably like the key things that jump out. It's like how I am able to be with you, but then also just like the intentionality of like the friendship, and trying to figure out ways to navigate that, even as like things have like ebbed and flow in terms of life stuff. So
yeah. Also, this is the best hostess you'll ever meet. She's always has the cutest things for parties and everything. I'm like, girl, I'm impressed. So I also feel like, yeah, kind of that like ability to be authentic and like, I think I said like the safe space. So
yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, she's always so sweet, and like just also in terms of like every time I come over, like she created a to-do list for us, make sure we get through it, and like make sure I feel cozy, and like knows little things about me to know like, okay, like this is how Drea is, so like let me just meet her. And we have differences, like we don't operate the same, but like we allow each other to meet each other where we are, and I love that. So
yeah, and really just like I feel like see each other, like it's like it's not just oh, like this is what I would want. It's like, oh, what do they want? Like where it's like that authentic like empathy and like, yeah, seeing the other person for sure.
Yeah, no, that's real. And I think we're both anxious, which I think is so funny because like it's like you don't have to really explain that part, like you kind of get it. But also, yeah, that relatability piece is nice, for sure.
Except don't traveling together.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. I was like, the travel part, like, yeah.
I mean, it was beautiful though, because we could again like be like, hey, like I'm just gonna go back to the room or whatever, and we were like, yeah, you do you, and I'm gonna do me. But then we also came together. But then yeah, the anxious parts, we were both like, oh, okay, maybe we need someone who's a little bit not as anxious,
right, to ground us, because I'm like, wait, have you thought about this? Have you thought? I think Jackie more anxious than me though, but it depends on the area. Like, for example, like I think, like for example, if we did, what did we do? Like when I think about when we went, what was that thing called? Like tubing or something like that, or like when we were on the boat and I almost died. Like that's my anxious, and Jackie's more anxious about other things, like other things, if that makes sense. Like, okay,
girl thought she was gonna die that day. Yeah, I feel like I'm also I'm definitely more anxious about like people around me and like and like logistics of like, okay, are we gonna next one you're like, we're gonna die today. I was like, we're good.
No, that's funny. I was like,
we balance each other out a little bit in our anxiety.
Yeah, it's like, it's for sure. And that makes sense though, because like typically if you struggle with anxiety, like it's because of like your past experiences. So like the way the experiences that you may experience anxiety in is going to be different, you know, and that's okay too. But like I like that you use the word like empathy, because that's real. Yeah, and just having a level of sensitivity is cool, which I think anxiety can kind of give you, which sometimes can be hard, but sometimes a blessing depending on, you know, how you look at it. So yeah, I love that. So
yeah.
All right.
So next
question. So what do you think makes like a good friend? And I put good in quotations. I know it's subjective, but what do you think?
Okay, so personally, I feel like I'm gonna be saying a lot of the same themes here, but like one for sure, empathy, like where it's your ability to take a step outside of like your own wants and needs and desires, and being able to like see the other person for like who they are and kind of just like their humanity, and like you said, like see it, the full spectrum, right? Because it's like, I think if we have, oops, sorry, not my girl.
No, you're good.
So I think if we have the concept of like, I can only accept you at like your best or at your like performative, like where you feel like I can't really like, I can't hold you as you are as a whole. So like, I think that's super important. Like just, I also think like maybe like flexibility would be a good one too, because I think like life like situations change, right? And like
They do.
some people move 2 hours away and then you have to navigate that, right? And like and then I'd say another one is intentionality. Like I think being intentional about how you love the person and like how you show up for them and like prioritizing them. And I'm trying to think of, I feel like maybe like not forgiveness, but like maybe it goes in with flexibility too, like of like kind of just allowing people to ebb and flow too, because I know like for you, you've been like a constant for me, even like I struggle with depression, and so like I have kind of like different energy levels and different capacities, and like she's always just been really receptive and like holding space, and like I'm sure there are days where she's probably like, hey girl, like it's been a couple days, where you at? But like she knows I'll always come back, and that when I do have that like shift in energy, that I'm able to like come back and connect again. So I do really appreciate that, because I do think it like helps alleviate like a lot of the like already like struggles that I have with that, and it just opens a space for like, you're just like a very safe person for me, and I like don't ever question our friendship, and I don't feel worried of like, oh, I have to perform a certain way or do something specific or else I'll lose her. So like there's like a very like secure, you like provide a lot of security in that way for me. Thanks.
I love that. I feel like it's like one of those moments like you want to say like kind of like ditto or something like that, but like I feel like I was just also just receiving that, and I think that that means a lot to me, and I really feel like a lot of people don't necessarily like have that. Like if I feel like I have to perform, that's not gonna work, if that makes sense, because I might already feel like I have to do that at job or like you know other different things or other places, you know. But to be able to like feel like I don't have to wear a mask, that's definitely something that I would like say like yes, like that. I agree with that. To me, like what makes a good friend is it's like the same thing but in different words. Like you feel seen, if that makes sense. And so like if I don't have to wear the mask, then I can see you for real. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I feel like that's like whatever that may be, seen in like your brilliance, like your, you know, like I see your light and all that kind of stuff, but I also see your sore spots. Like you see like the heaviness, and I can support you in that. And you know, we're both therapists. We're not each other's therapists, but like we're therapeutic to each other, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And like that's okay. You know, that my therapist doesn't have to be like the only person I go to for emotional support, that I can rely on you and feel held in that way. And if you don't have the capacity for it, like you can say that, you know what I'm saying? And I know, for example, like Jackie don't really like talking on the phone for real. Or I feel like, is it the phone or is like the
so my ADHD, I'm like, like it's so like when I'm in person or like have like a visual, a lot of times it's easier for me to like stay engaged and connected. So sometimes when I'm like on the phone, I'm like, I'm gonna be starting climbing the counters. So that's my personal hang up on the phone calls. But
no, that's real. But that's real. But I'm not gonna like get mad about it. But like also like it's just an example of like, okay, this is like what your capacity is, if that makes sense. But she also has been open more to you know, phone calls as we're like further away and it works, or video calls or whatever. I think technology, you know, sometimes it has flaws or whatever, but like it creates more space for us to be able to bridge the gap. Like we try phone calls, we done text, we done Marco Polo, the video calls, if that makes sense. So I like the idea of a good friend's like flexible. A good friend is you know, able to kind of navigate like the ebbs and flow of life. And I like that word intention so much because it's like me personally, this is like what I personally need. And I also feel like this is what a lot of people that I work with have longed for is like that level of intimacy, but maybe feel like afraid to like really express that. That makes sense. Like, am I doing too much? Am I being too much? Like, am I asking for too much? You know, like the norms in our society is to just be independent, to have it together, to just push through, to post your highlight reels, to like maybe, you know, I see you when I see you, if that makes sense. But for me, that don't work for me. I got a lot going on. Like, it's not gonna work. So I think it's okay to like say like I want deeper intimacy, I want intentionality, I want to be able to be seen, I want to do life with someone, if that makes sense, to like be able to like the small mundane moments, but also like the cool moments that like the highs and lows that are a little bit more emotion heavy, I guess. So yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Again, alignment on like what we need.
And that's important. Like, because it's okay if someone doesn't want that, but like if you want that, like being able to say like and radically own like this is what's important to me, and can I be open to like that energy coming into my life versus pretending that that's not something that's important to me, which I feel like I've done. So it's cool to be like, oh, like, okay. Like, oh, like it feels good, you know. And maybe that's another thing. Like, it should be something that like turns you on. It's a pleasurable experience. It's something that like brings you joy. That doesn't mean like you're always gonna be happy, if that makes sense. But it just means like overall, I'm excited about like the connection and relationship, if that makes sense. So yeah,
100%.
Okay, cool. We're doing good. So we're gonna do like a couple more questions and then wrap up with the one word question. Okay. So I think one thing that is cool to talk about is the idea of like navigating conflict, because you know sometimes people go through like friendship breakups and they're like, I'm this month, I don't want to do this again. That makes sense. And sometimes I've seen people. It might not even be a breakup. It might be like something happened, and we just kind of don't really talk as much, or it's just not as close anymore. Or you know, sometimes what I've seen too is like there'll be conflict, and I'll just push it down. I'm just gonna pretend like I'm. It's not. Maybe it's not the end of the world, but I'm just for this. My mind is for the sake of the relationship. I'm gonna push it down so I can just keep pushing forward. If that makes sense. And sometimes that can come up as resentment, or just sometimes it could just come up as I don't feel 100% seen in this relationship. And
like a recurring problem too. If it's like a pattern, not like just a one-off thing.
Yeah. So I'm curious, just like your experience with like navigating conflict in the context of platonic intimacy, and like what advice like you would give on that. So yeah.
Still on the journey.
As we all are. Yeah.
I think I've definitely learned a lot over the years, right? Like especially comparative to how I've been like taught to navigate conflict like within my like familial dynamic. I think that's kind of what like conditioned me, and how I did though kind of like move differently with like acquaintances or like friendships, where I think I went into like that people pleasing mode, and it was like okay, whatever, like I'll just do whatever it takes to keep you in my life. And so I was that kind of like push it down, ignore, keep it going. But then like as I've evolved and grown and kind of realized like that's not helpful for anyone involved, I've learned to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, what is it that I like need in this dynamic? And then also like keeping it to like my feelings instead of like putting the blame on the other person, or like making them feel not good enough or whatever it is, right? Like to just be like, okay, what is it that I need? How do I present this to them? And also the empathy piece again, because like everybody has like different things going on in their lives, internally, externally, like circumstantially, like belief wise, like just internal narratives, all that kind of stuff. So it's like very nuanced. So to be able to really like present yourself while also still having an open ear to like what that person has experienced too. Like, because I think a lot of times we go into conflict of just like me, right? And then it's like, well, I want my needs met, which is good to prioritize yourself and good to like advocate for your needs and stuff. But to realize like humans are very nuanced and complicated, and like
that's real.
It's like it's not going to be just a hey, I need this, check, okay, done, like we're good, right? Like it might take multiple conversations, or it might take like checking yourself, like how am I approaching this with my tone and stuff like that. So that's kind of my perspective on navigating conflict.
No, that makes sense. I love that the word like need came up, because that's like the root to me of conflict. Typically it's like a mismatch of needs. Like I want this and maybe you want something different. So one thing, for example, if like if I'm like, oh, I need a lot of quality time, and you're like, oh, I need some time to myself, for example, like it's not bad. Like we don't have to, it's not a bad thing, right? So
Right.
like reframing conflict is not negative, but like something that actually should bring us closer, if that makes sense. So it could be an opportunity for you to say like, for example, if that was the example, for you to say like, oh, she wants to spend more time with me, like let's do that, or she wants to spend more time with me, and maybe I don't have the capacity, but I know that that's something that maybe I can prioritize a different time or a weekend or whatever, if that makes sense. um and like we just know, we learn more about each other through the conflict versus it being something like a personal attack, or I feel like you're saying something negative about me, if that makes sense, or I think that this conflict means the potential loss of the relationship, if that makes sense, which that's real. So that's the only thing I would just actually not even add, but just highlight is the need piece. It's like being able to say like, hey, this is what I need, and like that's okay. And not see it as a negative thing. Understand that sometimes there is a mismatch in needs, and some, like, one person might not be able to give you everything that you need, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that they don't love you or whatever, but it's also okay for you to name like, but this is what's important to me, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like that leads to my, there's so many questions. I guess it was two more questions, but we'll wrap this in together. So it's like, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, and other that I think will be helpful for other people to figure out too, is like this concept of like, how do you deepen intimacy in friendships? And then what happens when maybe you are in a context of a friendship where that intimacy isn't there for whatever reason, and you want to be open to new energy where you can get like that, your needs met. And just curious about like any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, well, lots of layers.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it short, but like, I think deepening intimacy, one, you have to deepen your intimacy with yourself, like, because I think you have to, like, bless you. You have to meet people. You have to meet yourself to be able to like open the door of vulnerability first and foremost. Like, it's a scary thing, so like to hold space for that fear and like say it's okay, like it's not always going to be comfortable when you're deepening intimacy. And then two, something that I felt was like really intimidating was like, oh my God, I have to recreate the wheel. It's like, no, there are a lot of tools that you can use, like whether that's like a card game or like Google questions and be like, hey, what's this or whatever. So it's like, you don't have that pressure to be like, oh, I have to like go on this like existential venture to like figure out how do I deepen this intimacy with someone. Like, Google's free.
Right. That's free.
For now. No, I was just kidding. I hope it's free. Right. Anyway, yeah. So I think that like deepening intimacy in that aspect and like going out and making new connections, like something that was suggested to me one time, which I love this and I've been trying to integrate it, is like find what you love to do. So if it's like I love to go to a concert or like pottery or whatever, like go and do that thing and then like practice putting yourself out there, like that rejection therapy. Because even if you don't meet anyone that you vibe with, you did something that you really enjoyed still. So like you're still enjoying your time and stuff. So I think that might be an opportunity to like find people that you are more connected with, and like you said, dating friends, right? Like I think it's okay to be like particular on who you spend your energy with, and to be like I wouldn't pursue a partner if like we were mismatched on like if we want kids or things like that. So like the same, or like values and beliefs and stuff like that. So I think it's okay to apply that same concept to friendship as well.
No, I love that. I'm obsessed with the like dating your friends concept. Get your friends flowers.
She's in love with me.
Like pretty much.
I'm in love with her. It's mutual.
And that's okay. Like I feel like we need more of that energy and love in the world. Like it's not just like, I think in society we kind of idolize just like this romantic relationship, specifically like this more traditional romantic relationship, versus like being able to see multiple people in your life as like lovers. And I think that's really important. I think for me, the first thing is expressing that you want more. Like when you feel that in your heart, like being able to say like, oh, this is valid, instead of saying like, oh, like maybe I'm doing too much, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like it's like, no, like this is valid. And I feel like when you do that, that's like how your inner child feels the most held. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to give you what you feel like is a valid need, but it starts with naming like, okay, this is valid. And then for me, it's also, telling whoever it is that you're in relationship with that, okay, girl, like let's plan a date, like, or can I ask you on a date, if that makes sense, or are you free at this time? Like how you would with like scheduling anything, work meetings, time with like your kids, time with your partner, you know, if you do any type of hobby, like a lot of us pretty much schedule that time. And so like seeing your friendships as also people that you schedule intentional time with. And sometimes that can be, you know, like the fancy stuff that we all like to put on Instagram, or it could also be, again, like chilling, doing outings where you're like just hanging out at home, which I feel like is really restorative and nice, especially in this winter season.
Hibernation.
Exactly. Like take a nap and then wake up and read, or like I've seen people do some reading retreats, like, you know, just find ways to connect. But in terms of ways to find new friends, there's like Jackie said, you can Google it. There's a lot of opportunities for people to come into connection, again, because we are in a loneliness epidemic. You're not alone, like you're not by yourself and wanting this connection. So whatever way that you could think about it in a creative way to find new people, I would say do it. But once you're in those spaces, you also want to think about, how do I do the brave thing of saying like, hey, let's go get coffee, or hey, let's go to do this thing and that we both really like. And once that date is over, hey, like I had really fun, you know, like would you like to do this next thing? You know, like it's like these very like practical things that, again, we forget to do because of like the norms surrounding friendship in our society, the norms surrounding connection. I like what you said, even with deepening your connection with yourself. Like if I don't deepen my connection with myself, I never get to the point where I even admit that these are the things that I want. If I'm at a space where like I'm numbing everything that I feel, whether it be with work or substances or food or with TikTok, which is about to be banned, it's crazy, but but whatever your thing is,
don't remind me.
It's like, if I'm not disconnected from myself, I never really have to sit with the desire and the longing. I understand that sometimes it's hard to sit with desire and longing because you sit within it and what you want is not there. I think Kronk's about to wake up, so we're gonna wrap it up. But it's important to sit with that and be in any uncomfortable emotion around it, and to be honest about it, whether it be with your current friends or with really the universe as you open up to new energy as well. And so, yeah, that would be my response. And we're going to wrap it up with one more question. And like I said, at the end of the video, there'll be some journaling prompts. So you could just think about this and apply it to your life in a way that hopefully is meaningful to you. But the last question we're going to end with is just like, what is one word that you would use to describe our friendship?
This is so hard to narrow down to one. I'm going to say, I think grateful, because I'm grateful for your friendship and just so many things about our dynamic. And then I also think like you bring that gratitude as well, and like just the acknowledgement and like celebration of our connection.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. I'm gonna do one where I was gonna cheat and do two, but we're gonna do one for sure. But they're kind of like the same word to me in a way. Like, so I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go. But I would say seen, if that makes sense. Like I feel like seen and thus also loved. Like it's hard for me not to feel loved without being seen in that way. So like definitely that. If that was like a love language, that would be mine outside of quality time.
I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah.
I think that is my answer.
No, that's good. But thank you for starting this series off with me. I really appreciate just the vulnerability of just being open to the conversation that's actually recorded. We have these conversations all the time, but like now that it's on screen, it's a whole other vibe.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And thank you for putting me in your circle. I feel honored. So.
Stop it. Well, thank y'all so much. Like, always remember that you are loved, you are enough, and stay inspired. And tune in next week for another conversation with one of the loves of my life. All right, we're done.
30